Great, good morning everybody and welcome to Obooks Presents. I'm Ben Crabe, and Obooks Presents, we present authors and books for spiritual living and showcase new authors on the mind, body, spirit world. Please subscribe to our channel. Today we've got an author called Wendy Erlick, and she's written a book with us called The Gift of an Angel. Morning, Wendy.
Hello there. Hi Ben, how are you?
Good, thank you. And I wanted, Wendy's like an angel channeler and a kind of intuitive medium. I don't know if that medium is the right word. Wendy, I wondered if you could sort of explain a little bit about yourself and what you do, and we can talk further after that.
Okay, all right. I have a conventional background. I had a degree in sociology and social anthropology, and I had many years in local government. I was always hearing angels, and I was always putting it to one side. And I had my own business, which was to be a community capacity builder as a consultant, and I was doing very well. But of course, I got hit by the 28 crash, and when the public sector it just slashed. Meanwhile, I trained in energy work because I was an empath, and very selfishly I trained because every time I'd give healing, I used to be exhausted. I used to be giving instinctive healing, and people would go away. They'd come and talk to me, and they'd go away. They'd go away great, and sometimes I'd be in bed for 3 days. So I went to train in Biora energy healing, and the reason I did that was just for my own selfish reasons, to manage my energy. And it did teach me, that course taught me how to manage my energy. And whilst I was doing a meditation on the course, I saw my angel standing above me, and until that point I hadn't admitted her at all. I had refused because I was very terrified, because we are here on earth to be having our life, and I didn't really want to have any involvement from spirit. But once I saw my angel, I then started listening to her, and I started getting challenges. So the work I do now is I work from Watkins 1 day a week on a Tuesday, and people come in to see me, and basically I don't know what's going to happen when I see them because it's different for each person. They come and they give me their story, and then we work out the work together with the whole emphasis if they shouldn't do anything they don't want to do. And then I see what happens. Sorry, that's a very long answer. Maybe.
No, it's great. And what I'm hearing is you're saying, like, one significant part of your life or half of your life was very secular, shall we put it? And like you kind of were, the spiritual dimension was there, and you always were connected to your angel, and that was always a part of you. But it was after, when you lost the job. Then
when I lost my business and everything folded, I went into the abyss. I lost it all, and then luckily I had this to fall back on, actually. But it took that for me to step into this world. It took quite a long time to assimilate it, and even now my friends tell me off, because even now I'm prone to be saying, well, when I was a consultant, and they're like, no, Wendy, now you're an angel channeler, you have to get on with it. And actually I love it. I love the work, and I'm so blessed. Because sometimes people come to see me and we do a measurement. How are you feeling now? Like 0 out of 10, kind of infused. And in the space of half an hour, working with the angel, or an hour, that person can quite often go away. I have to underpromise and over-deliver. 9 times out of 10, the person will go away and they make significant changes. And that's very, very lovely for me.
Yeah. So your work now, is sort of, you're kind of advising people or working with people in conjunction with your angel, and
and of course I'm writing naturally. So, I'm a writer too. So.
And so in your book, The Gift of an Angel, it's kind of about your journey working with angels, and your journey kind of coming out spiritually, and sort of this spiritual career and spiritual self blooming. I wondered, there's some in the book. I wonder if you could share with us, what it was like growing up, being aware of this dimension of life, and the kind of challenges that it gave you, and maybe why you chose to ignore it for that amount of time.
I think in some ways as humans that we are programmed to ignore it, because we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and it's the soul that's eternal, not the body. So while we have the holy vessel of the body, and we have that chance to use the body, and we make manifest the divine by the things we think, maybe you think of a cup. Someone thinks about, how can I make this cup? We create that. You might think of a cup with diamonds on it, or everything around us. So my belief is that it's scary for a reason. And the Kabbalists, they say until you're 40, you shouldn't be looking at mysticism anyway, because you actually have to be self-defined enough to be able to cope with seeing spirit in terms of who am I? Am I being invaded? Because this is our body. And certainly the priests in ancient Egypt could see dead people, but normal people, we don't want to see dead people. The sixth sense, it's terrifying. So of course, where I felt a spirit encroaching, I was terrified. So I was always like, no, go away. And they were knocking quite a few times. But then I had spirit comfort me on several occasions, even as a small child, because my family background, we were very poor, and my mother was in despair a lot of the time. And I can remember walking with her and seeing a silver cord coming from my stomach, and I used to call on this cord to pull me along. And I had no idea that was a lifeline. It's like literally, and it is something. It's an etheric cord. I didn't know that it was that, but I saw it. I remember vividly as a child and being comforted. So,
and can you explain a little bit more about the silver cord? Because it's something I've seen come up in this kind of writing, or people talk about this kind of thing quite a lot. Is it sort of like a connection from you back to your source? Is it from a specific spirit?
I haven't looked it up properly, but I believe there is connection to source, and that it literally holds us in the etheric, in terms of how we have like a golden shadow, and we have a shadow, and which we hold. And I think that source, that cord is something that holds us to source. But I will go and look it up. Actually, now you've mentioned it. Because all I know that is when I was 5, I used to see it, and then I always called it.
The reason I thought of that was I had a spiritual teacher who worked with in the hospice a lot and sat with a lot of people who were dying, and noticed that he would see a silver cord coming out of the person as they died.
That's interesting. Yes. So maybe that is something to do with the soul, which apparently weighs 3 ounces. So perhaps that is to do with the soul. I suspect it might be, because it also where it's situated. So okay.
So you're saying it was a bit scary being connected to that dimension of life, a bit uncertain, and so you kind of protected yourself by kind of shutting it out a little bit. So that was your. And is that fair to say that?
The thing for me was that I was very focused on the material, because I'd had a poor background. I had 2 kids. I wanted to make money, and then when I went into spirituality, it was all about making money and manifesting. So I went into a very kind of superficial form of spirituality for a little while, where I was kind of playing and thinking, oh well, if I want such and such, I can manifest it, and I did. I was good at it. If I needed a tape measure, and I came out and it was on the road. I mean, that happened quite a lot. And then I needed some money, and I wanted it for my business. I wanted £5,000, and I kept visualizing it. And it did turn up in my bank account. $5,000 turned up. And the bank was saying, can you please use this to pay off your overdraft? And I had to say, well, actually, that money is not mine. And I had to just give it back to them. So I began to realize that unless I was kind of rooted, that what I was doing, I was conjuring things like you might conjure a firework. But that actually had to change my attitude and become much more grounded, and so that if I was going to manifest it, it was because I'd given service, not because I'm just dreaming it up. So nice. So you're saying while you had your kind of business career, then you were working on these spiritual things, and then focusing on sort of maybe like you said, the more surface level, making money through it. But then it was the sort of upheaval and change that kind of pushed you into working, to help people, to serve people. In a way, but also I was very guided. I started products. And so I placed some products in Watkins, and I was getting told, I was starting to hear. So I walked past the National Gallery near Watkins Books, and I walked in, and for that, they actually told me, they were like, go in. I was really getting a strong message to go in. And I was walking around the National Gallery, and I talk about this in my book. And this was really very wacky, because they were like, go here, go there. And they took me into the basement, and there was things that there was angel planners, and I didn't buy it. I just saw these angel planners, and then I was like, went upstairs, and they showed me this picture of a seeress, and they said, this is you. And I had no idea. I thought, because she was fat, I thought they were telling me to lose weight. And then I wandered off into Watkins, and their palmist was going to India, and they said to me, would you like to come in and give angel readings? So I was then started to do that work. But I was pretty dense about it. I think it must have got very impatient with me.
Yeah.
Video.
What I like about your book is these kind of anecdotes, like you said, your moment coming to London and being guided into Watkins. And there's one that kind of struck with me, which was you were involved in a coach crash. Is that right?
I was involved in a coach crash.
And somehow it's sort of, what I find so interesting, it was simultaneously kind of scary and traumatic, but also somehow transcendent and beautiful because of what you were seeing. I wonder if you could talk a bit about. Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, so I was 19 and I was thin. Then I was like, we used to fell walking and rambling. I was part of the walking and rambling club at Hull University. So we went out one day, and I got on the coach. It was empty. I remember it very, very vividly, with three of my friends, and I chose the seats. Okay, so I sat down next to the window. And unfortunately, later the coach went up and it slipped on agricultural mud and it turned over. And so I was thrown out of the window. And because I was asleep, I had some injury. It wasn't huge. But the person behind me was killed. Okay. So that really gave me, it worked on two levels, because after we were thrown out, I couldn't understand why everybody was trying to get this coach back on its feet, because I could just see music, and I saw a circle of hands, and it was so beautiful. It was just like a vortex of help and of joy just coming out of the sky. And I remember watching it, I was thinking, well, why are you bothering? And everyone was scurrying off to get agricultural equipment, and I didn't have concussion. I just saw the hands. I saw it. It was astonishing. It was so beautiful.
Yeah. And it was like, and you're saying that it was kind of the souls who would have died being met. Is that what you? Yeah.
It was a greeting. Yeah.
And crossing over.
And also, I think everybody must have been very concerned, because it was a lot of young people. It's maybe 100 or so young people. It's two coaches. I don't know how many people you get on a coach. Maybe 60, 70. So we were all young. So there was a lot of concern and a lot of love streaming down for that one.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the whole thought that I just missed it by a whisper, that I just chose one seat in front, and that how valuable every second is. That really drummed it into me, that every second that we have is a gift, actually. And I know people say it so many times, because I can remember the guy being, it could just easily have been lost.
Yeah.
I could have lost my life so easily,
And also that, we're so used to, no one wants to die. No one wants a horrific accident, and no one would wish that on anyone. But we're so used to feeling awful about. I mean, grief is real and grief is awful. But it's. I'm thinking it's what's supposed to be pointed to. There's a kind of a transcendent dimension or another side of things that the majority of us aren't. Open to or willing to be open to, even in the supposedly traumatic stuff. Yeah.
And it's interesting. I was speaking about this with someone yesterday, because it almost feels that sometimes it's like the transition can be seamless between life and death, and that sometimes when I've known people and they've had a good life, and that death is actually a blessing to them, that although I have suffered, but actually I've seen them kind of go with joy. And so I have been the one who has had, with the attachment, and I haven't, and I still do grieve very deeply, because I'm very loving, and if I lose anyone, it's very tough for me. Even a dog, I lost my dog, and it was just like a nightmare. But I have several times seen the joyousness of people who are released from the body into.
I've seen that, and I've seen so many times in books and personal anecdote. And that there is almost often a kind of transfigurative time, and someone's about to die, or a very that kind of what you're talking about. And I'm not talking about. I'm not trying to deny our grief or anything like that.
I know we're not.
No, that's fascinating, and so you call your angel your angels. So is this an angel who's like your personal guide only to you? Does your angel work with other people? How does the whole thing work a bit?
There's a $26 billion question.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting question. I asked you about it for Kindred, actually. No, I just have to say. So I've been thinking about it quite a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see my angel. And when I eventually saw her, because she took me unawares, and I realised she wasn't scary, and I accepted her, and I heard her name, which is Celestial Bell.
Yeah.
And I thought that was hysterical when she told me her name was Celestial Bell.
Yeah.
And she said to me very sternly, I see her as a she said to me very sternly, well, that's a very common name amongst angels, but I haven't heard of any others. But I looked it up on the internet, and there is a sacred painting in China called Celestial Bell. I couldn't see it, believe it. And people actually make them, and I didn't know that either. They make celestial bells for cleansing. So I worry in some ways about how we actually begin to interpret the angelic world, because part of it feels as though it's so immense that we try and categorize it, and almost we can't, because our framework of reference is so limited. So sometimes when I kind of get a name or something, we will think that we want to name it verbally, but sometimes I think things just are. And to me it is actually a mystery, and that I worry when there's a movement to try and categorize angels in a way, say this and this is here, and then people come in and they say to me, they get worried that they don't have the capacity to connect. And when really and truthfully we all have the crown chakra, the affirmation for the crown chakra is the right to be inspired and to connect to spirit. We all have the capacity to connect, but it's normally in a different way. We can all, so some people will have a feeling, or some people might find signs, or some people will hear, and it's all valid. It's not that we're just so taught that we have to be judged and have to be good, but this is our divine right. Sorry, I lecture. I go off on one about it. I'm so sorry, because I feel really passionate about it. The angels are for everyone in a way.
Yeah, no, it's great, and I love hearing you talk about it. I think I personally I tend to agree that I think if I've read a book or someone's trying to literally map out, say, kind of the afterlife or the mysterious unseen aspects to life, like a kind of labeled map, it always like a system, logical system, it always feels a little bit dead to me. It feels like a little bit of contrived, a little bit of mystery of the whole thing is taken away. And I mean, for instance, personally, I've not often, but there have been some moments where I felt clearly kind of guided, like pushed somewhere by my intuition, and it's been a very strong thing.
Absolutely.
That's not the normal day-to-day thing. But that
did it always prove to be right?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
That's something that's worked for me. But for you, is it you sometimes see things visually, and do you hear a voice, or do you converse in voice, and does the voice seem like a different voice to yours? How does it work for you personally?
Okay, so I have to just tell you, I was really skeptical about it. And there's the whole business of thinking, am I imagining this? Am I seeing this? Okay, so I was always denying it. And the only thing that made me change my mind was that someone I had my chart read twice in Totnes. And my chart said that I had the under my star sign, I had the capacity to connect to angels.
Wow, yeah.
Okay, so then in my star chart, so then I started to believe it a bit more, and then quite often I started to write when I heard her, and it was coming true. So I have a mixture. I'm really lucky because I hear and I see and I feel and I sense. I'm really blessed with it. So I get it in different ways.
Yeah.
But now I'm 57, so now I can determine between what's mine and what's theirs. But it's taken all this time.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't worry about whether people shouldn't worry. They should actually think, well, and also it's good to try and verify your angel. That's one of the things they taught me on the Biora course, to verify the message.
And how do you verify a message that you get, or how is it common sense? Is it?
No, how do I verify it?
Yeah.
You observe. Yeah. So, for example, in my book, I mentioned that on one day when I was in deep trauma, I kept hearing this song Silent Night coming from the radio, and I couldn't work it out. I stopped and looked around, so that was that incident. Even though I converted to Judaism, I was hearing Silent Night, and it really comforted me. And then last week in Watkins, a book fell off the shelf into my hands because I was writing this article for Kindred, and it's another book author, and I can't remember her name. I'll give it to you afterwards. It's a really interesting little book called The Angels in Between, and she talks in that book. She says, well, I was in such and such a place, and I heard the song Silent Night in this book, and she said it's a form of angelic connection. It's not religious. It's actually a healing if you hear it. So that incident, the first instance, happened when my son was 4 and he's 18 now. That was 14 years ago. But that to me is a verification 14 years later that actually I was being visited by angels at that point. So it's just to listen out. Later they will come back to you and say, yes, it was us. Even if it does take a decade and a half nearly. Sorry to go. No.
It's super interesting. So it's about being very aware and conscious of, the things that appear to be synchronous and symbols and signs, and just being very, very conscious of them.
But also be skeptical, because like sometimes I live in Totnes and there's lots of white feathers because the seagulls going ahead, and I find people in the high street saying, oh, I've just been given a white feather, and I look up and there's all the seagulls, and sorry, that's not to denigrate maybe people of Totnes, but everybody, you do need to be very sensible. It's not to we mustn't lose our power in this. White feathers from angels, they normally seem to be suspended mid-air, or they're in an unusual place, or you come back and you find them and they haven't been there before. It's not that there's a flock of birds going overhead. And you mustn't lose your power with this world and become, not become a lost soul in a way.
And how could you lose your power? You're sort of being obsessive or become superstitious about the whole thing, or is that?
I think it's you lose your power when you put yourself. You become like I did it. I became like a piece of flotsam because I was just thinking, well, where's Spirit sending me? I'll just go for a little while. I'll just go here and I'll just go there, and actually it leads you to disaster. I'm very practical in terms of mapping out what it is I want to achieve on Earth. We're having a human experience, so which gifts are we meant to be bringing? And of course, the whole thing that I was taught was that on the one hand, in Judaism, it's Tika Alam, which is repairing the world, making the world repair. And on the other hand, it's enjoying all the delights and tasting the world. And if you don't, when you die, you have to come back and do it again. So it's not to be lost. It's to actually think, well, okay, I'm meant to be engaged in repair and I'm meant to be engaged in enjoyment. And that doesn't mean I don't get depressed with it in it all or have a terrible day sometimes, because I do, because we are human. But I'm trying to, at least I have that aim.
I really like that. So
and that's helpful.
Repairing the world, that's a bit like service, isn't it? And enjoying. It's
to be engaged in the repair of the world. And so because you can easily get lost in either one, because it's so hard to navigate the two, really. I can say, well, I'm just going to have a wow of a time. Or you can be like, okay, I can't have a wow of time because so much suffering. And I see this a lot, you get guilty because of suffering. So by just having the balanced approach, just saying, well, it's my entitlement to engage in the repair to the extent of my capacity. And it's my entitlement to enjoy it because it's so beautiful and we're so blessed to have our bodies and be here, really. To be able to move, to get out. We're just like, it's like, just low smooth, to move your hand is heavenly, really. Sorry, I do lecture. But
no, it's great. I love it. And and I guess, if you are sensitive, if you're an empath, or if you're a naturally highly sensitive person, then often the tendency is just to give, and not. And like you said, you had to learn to manage your energy, because you'd be taking on people's stuff so much.
Yeah, I would take on people's stuff.
Yeah.
I don't mind the giving because I get a lot of joy out of giving.
Yeah.
The difficulty was where I do a lot of healing by feeling, and I had to learn that I could feel in order to take the energy, and I don't stop doing that. I will not feel somebody's pain, but I've learned how to clear it.
Yeah.
And so I don't mind now because I can just clear it really quick and help the other person come into alignment. And then so if I come and someone comes and they see me and they walk away and they're realigned, I'm very happy on their behalf. So I'm always saying to people, I should be paying you for doing this. And they're like, no.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I know, fantastic. And so if there's some, I think people are really interested in, angels and as a subject. And if someone is, do you have any kind of tips if someone appears sensitive or someone kind of wants to connect, or it's just, and they maybe not as far along as you, they think they question themselves, I'm not sure what I'm feeling, I'm experiencing, and they're a bit of a muddle about it, but they would like to maybe see if they can connect with their own angel or something like that. Have you got any kind of tips or advice for people who want to kind of get involved and get in touch with that kind of world?
I love to give a meditation. I have a meditation where I work with my clients for them to meet their angel. The angel will show themselves at the rate that's acceptable to the person. If it's going to terrify, they kind of know if the person's ready. So sometimes the angel will just give a symbol. So the meditations to meet the angel are good. To go into nature is good. The main thing is to try not to be judging yourself, because it's like if you're going, oh my God, I want to meet my angel, and you're like on full alert, then how can you? Because it's, is it real? So it's just to be quietly present and observant without any expectation. Because they're there with, I do believe every person has an angel. That's the most I know about it. But they are there without any doubt, or maybe there's a few. Maybe it's different for each person. Without a doubt, they're there. But you're not to get hung up and miss your life because you just want so much. There's going to be time to see your angel. You're a long time dead, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also, when I heard you speak at Watkins Bookshop, you mentioned something along, it's not just your connection there might not just come from healing and in a kind of one-to-one client thing like you do. It could be through the act of creation as well, or some kind of worldly act where you feel very connected and very in the flow, and you could be kind of connecting with the angelic realm through there. It could be making something, for example.
Yeah. Well, there's angels of the age through the Steiner school that my children went to. They were very into angels, so I learnt like St. Michael, the angel of our age, and certainly I believe that each house has an angel. And so I talked to the angel of the house, and actually my ex-husband and I, we didn't get divorced for like 7 years, and I finally sat down and spoke to the angel of our marriage. And I went on I ran a Davis course, and I spoke to the angel with my colleague Scylla Conway, and we ran a Davis course, and I spoke to the angel of my marriage, and she said, please would you release me? I don't know whether to be with you or him. And so I released her, and immediately we were able to get our divorce. He's moved on, he's married, so I do think there's a soul or a spirit around a building or around
well, I kind of have to agree with you. I've just moved to Brighton recently from London, and we've moved to a house, and before there was a lovely couple living in the house, but their children were grown up, and I can't prove this, but I have a very strong sense that like the energy of the house is happy to have children in there again, or there's a family. Like I feel like it really is happy that it's a kind of
right. Good shout. Absolutely correct. Trust that.
Fantastic. And your book, is this, how did you come to sort of write your book, or did you feel called to write your book? Was it did it feel like the book had to come through you? Did something your angel advised you to do?
It was very insistent, and I had I had to do it. I was very called to write that book. and it does seem to help people.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend hours plugging my book, but someone came to me through
Yeah.
they bought my book in London, and it really helped them. They just held it. They felt as though it was useful.
Yeah.
And so they came to find me for some, and I'm doing some coaching with them. But that really helps me, that if someone has hold of the book, and it gives a bit more faith to realize that we are empowered, that we are spiritual beings, that we have the right to bring our gifts, all of these things, and that we are actually people. That's the main thing, is to realize how in ourselves that we're a gift.
Yeah. And was it, I mean, I can't remember where I heard it, you know, so going from inverted commas like secular job to kind of coming out spiritually like this, and sort of putting yourself out there as, you know, and you know, someone who works with an angel to guide other people. Was that a challenging thing to do for yourself?
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Bear in mind that I used to be suited up, you know, making local government decisions, raising lots of money. It's a complete nightmare for me. And actually, I started to realise that I had actually been self-derogatory, and I was wrong. You know, that I'd actually been prejudiced against myself.
Yeah.
And there's an article coming in the next Kindred talking about divination.
Yeah.
And so when I wrote that article, I actually started to realise that I was very blessed to have the gift, and that and to accept it.
Yeah.
And that everybody has been engaged. Everyone wants divination at some point, particularly when there's a difficult time. So, for example, Winston Churchill is documented as being very interested in the psychic world and the unseen.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. Sir Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he was heavily involved. During the Second World War, there was a medium, I can't remember her name, who was, if you look up, he was a Scottish, she was helping people to connect with people who'd passed over.
Yeah.
And doing it for no money. Helen Duncan.
Okay.
And he was very involved, because she then started getting called up for witchcraft, and he was involved in defending her. And it is the shadow. Yeah. I began to realise that it's a shadow. People say this person's a witch, or every business has a shadow. So like accountancy has a shadow.
Yeah.
So does lawyer. People say, or the tax man. People will say, or even doctor. Everyone would say there's a shadow.
Yeah.
So people would name a shadow in terms of people like myself who are diviners, or an angel channeler, in terms of saying that we could be fraudulent or making it for our own means. And so I myself have very strong ethics in terms of what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah.
But because that's. I
think like, because there is like a lot kind of a base prejudice out there. I just saw I don't know if you saw in the news, someone from one of the big water companies said, someone on Twitter, they said, someone's asked them, do you ever use divining to find water? And they said yes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Occasionally we do. And then the kind of the bile that came at them after that, and they had to apologise and that kind of thing. So I guess that's but then it was interesting, because there's a lot of judgment out there, but also you scratch the surface, there's a lot of people who are quite sane, but also take this quite seriously as well.
Mostly people take it seriously.
Yeah. Actually.
And when I worked in local government and I was learning to do the Biora energy healing, I had to train, and I used to go in as a consultant, and I was on quite a big day rate. I used to sit in their main conference room on the quiet during my lunch hour, saying, "Oh, come in for a case study, because I need some case studies." And there was a stream of people who used to come in and see me, and nobody said a word. So from the cleaner to the boss, everybody would come in, and it was never mentioned. But everybody actually, because we all have a soul and we're all spiritual, so of course.
Yeah. And also, I think that, you know, you get frauds and dodgy people in every single walk of life, you know, and people who are, you know, trying it on a bit, or just not that great, or just not very good, or deceiving themselves. And you get them in the mind, body, spirit world, and you get them everywhere, right? You get them in the train track engineering world. So, but I personally, you know, people like yourself and one of our authors, Colette Brown, and, you know, I often, for the people, a lot of professional psychic or professional readers take it very seriously, take their ethics very seriously, and I always think is a good judgment is how grounded is this person, how sort of sane do they appear normal, and if they feel like otherwise like a human being who you could take seriously and then I think you're safe taking the other stuff seriously, the reading and the guidance.
Yeah. But then also always come back to your own body. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
In terms of the red table at Watkins, the body gives the indication. Yeah. I mean, some people say it might give you resistance, and it's not so. But then I think if it's resistance, it feels much heavier. Yeah. But if you have like a strong inkling it's not right. Yeah. So I worked with a woman in Canada by Skype. Yeah. And she had a health problem, and I don't often do much medically. I knew her quite well, and so I gave her reading, and I said there's been a breach. She had a heart problem. There's been a breach, and I said I think that means a tear. For me, a breach meant a tear. And she said to me, no, Wendy, it's not a tear. It's a block, because a breach means a block. Right. A breech birth is when a baby gets blocked. Right. So, and she was right. I was wrong. She had 4 blocks. Yeah. Okay, and I really learnt a lesson from her, because when the angels are giving the words, whatever they're giving the message is for the other person. It's not for me to put my projections. The other people, I can read it, and the other people, the person I'm reading it to, they will absolutely know. Yeah. And if it's not right, and if it's me, and they will tell me. Sorry.
I think that's a great point, and I think often I found my own experience having readings. Sometimes there's something the reader might say and it might not be right, or it might not come true, but often there's something over the course of the reading that feels like an intuitive hit. Like I feel like that was the message I was wanting to get, I needed to get, and it's a very kind of clear kind of resonation, and I think that's the most important thing I need to take away. So it's staying in your own power, using your own discernment, and not giving anyone the right to run your life for you, basically.
No. And then the other thing, of course, I think there's an umbrella over the reading, which is about realignment. And I describe it, not everyone agrees with me. I think it's like that you put people in touch with the God within them and the God outside of them, so that we realize how small we are and how large we are. And that through the process of the reading and the energy work that goes on with it, the person comes back to themselves. They come back to source. They come back to their purpose and to being realigned. Yeah. So it's not necessarily just the whole thing about saying, oh well, because quite often with the paths, it's equal. You can go on either path. It's just we have so many choices. Yeah. Or it's having the courage for the path. It's complex, and I don't think any reading I've given has ever been the same. I'm always surprised by every reading. Yeah.
So what would if someone was to come to you at Watkins on, is it Tuesdays? You're there.
Tuesdays I do.
Or they were going to Skype with you, or what would they expect? You say no 2 readings are the same, but is there a kind of
well, usually I have a bit of a pattern with it, that I'm asking people. First of all, I like people to be very honest with me. I've had to close down readings where people come in and say, please will you read me, because the problem with that for me is I work such on the basis of empathy. I'm such an empath. As soon as someone says that, I just get their guard, so I completely freeze and I can't read them. Yeah. So I just say, I can't read you. You have your money back. It's happened twice, and I've been there about 10 years. Twice I've had to give people their money back because I can't and I won't do that either, because it just feels like it's so, I don't know. It just doesn't feel it's not right for me to do that. Yeah. So if someone comes in, I'm asking them to please tell me what brings them to the table. How do they want to feel when they leave? If they were keen for the day, and so on the basis of that. So if once somebody came, and I also assure them the reading's confidential. Yeah. So when I'm giving odd case studies here, no one can be identified because it's very sacred. I won't mock anyone, and I normally forget the reading. So it's good to come with a kind of plan, but sometimes those readings they go into the mainstream, and I end up doing some executive planning. Quite often. People who are more spiritual. Oh, no. Yeah, what's going to happen? But all I know is that the person I'm working with agrees it. Yeah. So there'll be a bit of energy work, and then I'll ask the angel to give insights and how they can help them.
Yeah.
So they get an actual angel reading at the end.
Lovely.
And the same for Skype.
And it's sort of about half an hour to an hour, depend.
Some of the Skype work I do, if people then start to coach with me, it can go up to an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Because we might do some deep cleansing work using Ho'oponopono quite often.
Yeah.
Or meditation, or sometimes I use the Radical Forgiveness tape that Colin Tippin uses.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's an hour and a half if it's really deep. But then those people, I'm working with them mostly on a block of 5 or 6 sessions, and they're getting it's deeper work.
Yeah. So there's a whole kind of range of ways people can work with you, long term, short term. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very lucky. Yeah.
I love it. What I think why people should check out the book, and what a big thing, like the whole thing about sharing your gifts and the challenge of that, and like lots of us for whatever reason have to sort of go through self-doubt or resistance and that kind of thing in order to do that. And it's kind of, I guess the book is kind of sharing your journey through that, as well as offering all this kind of insight and as to how you see the world and your perception. Do you think that's fair?
In a way, I mean, the book was written through the guidance, and I know that you can feel very resistant to that, but it was to try and give encouragement. Yeah. To have courage to believe in yourself. So that the vibration of the book. But I hate it if I read anything like that. If I pick up a book and it says, you've got this book in your hand because you're being pulled to it and therefore buy it, I really hate that. But I do hope that the book has something in it to lift you. Yeah. Even if you just, that's what I hope. No.
I think we've touched on it already, but if people wanted to get in touch with you or book a reading or find you, where can we find you?
Well, Watkins have been so good to me, and they're always my mothership, actually. So it's really good if people come into Watkins, if they're in London, and it's a real experience because it's such a great bookstore. Bookstore, it's beautiful. J.K. Rowling based Flourish and Plot, and so there's always people walking up and down on the alley in Watkins, outside Watkins, saying this is, anyway, so it's special. So that Watkins is a good place. Skype, sometimes amazing work through Skype. You have miracles through Skype. Yeah. I see angels on the other side. Great cleansing, perfect. So it's really Watkins or Skype. In all honesty, I do a small class in Devon if anyone's Devon based. Once every 3 weeks.
Lovely. And what's your website?
I have a site. I use a blog because the blog I can work on, and it's tactile, and I can work on it each day. But it's quite extensive. So I have is Celestial Healing at WordPress. Yeah. So if you put in Wendy Erlick Celestial Healing at WordPress, and also I have a closed Facebook group page for people who are interested in angels, and you could email me if you want to join that group. So it's Wendy Jane Erlick at gmail.com.
Great, Wendy Jane Erlick and gmail.com. And if you're interested, definitely I'd say check out that Facebook group. That sounds great. All right, listen, thank you so much for coming on. I could talk a lot longer, but I've got to go. But it's such a pleasure. And The Gift of an Angel, Wendy's book, check it out. If you're interested in this subject at all, it's definitely something you should be reading. And it's just such a pleasure to talk. So thank you.
No, thank you very much. And thank you to anyone who buys my book. You give me a gift as well.
Yeah.